Welcome to the Giving Back is Dead podcast brought to you by Scott Stover. Giving Back is Dead is a progressive, open forum for discussing next-gen giving to the arts and sustainable practices for nonprofits. For more information on Scott, myself, and our advisory services, please visit scottstoverinc.com. Welcome to the podcast, Giving Back is Dead. Giving Back is Dead is looking at the future of philanthropy to the arts. We're here at OFFSCREEN in Paris during Paris Art Week, and I'd like to thank my friend Julian Friedman, who is once again hosting us for the third year and is doing an incredible installation. If anyone hasn't seen it, I encourage you to see it. Masha Bucher is our guest today. Welcome, Masha.
Nice to be here. Thank you for having me here.
We're very happy to have you, Masha. Masha is founder and general partner at Day One Ventures. Masha, I've been wanting to have you here because obviously you were one of the only and one of the most important women in venture capital. That's correct, no?
Thank you. I'd like to say, hope to become venture capitalists that influence something in terms of what we're building for the future.
But I think you're one of the Forbes 30 under 30 and one of the few women. How many women are at your level in venture capital?
I think they say it's like 2% of women 2%. Are managing venture capital funds. So.
And your background actually is in communications. You did communications and PR.
I think of myself as an entrepreneur with specialty in marketing and communications.
Okay, so I think that's fundamental to your success, if I understand.
There are many components, but it's something I have passion about. That's something I've been doing for a long time.
And obviously what interests me is you believe that contemporary art is central to what you do. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Why? Tell me a little bit why
I think we started more than 6 years ago, the first firms that invest in tech companies and spearhead their communications. And my background was in communications. I was looking for the better way to collaborate with tech companies that I've been representing and been realizing that doing it as agency or consultant is just not fully aligned with long-term goals of these companies. But at the same time, something that came to me, and I've been in tech for more than like 15 years, and started realizing that world is full of issues and problems. And I started believing that tech entrepreneurs and this sector attracts the best, most active, energetic people of our time. And I started understanding that the most pressing world problems, inequality, cancer, climate, could not be solved without tech entrepreneurs. And I do think as technology is accelerating, the disconnect between tech circles and the rest of society started increasing, which is a big threat for this sort of problems to be solved. And we've been solving it through media and communications. And while that's been very efficient, I was strongly feeling it is efficient, but at the same time, I've been feeling like something is missing. And I realized that we've been solving this problem through mind, through understanding and logic, but we haven't been talking to people through their heart. And I started thinking that involving artists and culture in what we do and connecting society and tech sector together with the help of artists could be a very good idea. And I started thinking about how it could look like if we take technologies that we invested in, that I think some of the most important technologies for the future, and we can talk more about it. And what if we tell about these technologies to artists and let artists get to know them, and maybe it will inspire some formats that didn't exist before. And as a result of it, hopefully these technologies would start becoming part of the culture and part of the modern reality. And I realized it wouldn't be possible to just tell people and society about these technologies through media. You need to connect with art, and you need to connect with contemporary art in order to encourage and inspire mass adoption of these critical technologies.
Why only contemporary art? One of the things that I've seen this week, which I encourage you, I know you just come to go see, is the Torlonia collection, which is, have you heard about it?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see it because it's ancient Roman sculpture. It's supposed to be the most
I wouldn't limit it just like contemporary art. I think there are like different formats to be introduced, and it can start with visual art, but it could continue with movies and film and dance and music and just so many things, right? I wouldn't limit it by particular type of art. I think the rollout could be different based on what technology is there.
So there's something you said which intrigued me, where you said that you think, I can't remember if you said it was only, you would encourage your founders or your investors to visit museums, I think you said weekly. Was it both founders and investors, or one or the other?
What I was trying to say is that there is a thing that's like taste, and I think if you have a good taste, I think good taste is like, could be applied for different areas. If you have good taste in art, it gets translated into good taste in people, in products, in companies, in food and music. I think good taste is like a muscle, and as you develop this muscle, it becomes like almost universal. And I think for me and for my investor work, one of the most important things that helped me to become better picker of most promising companies early on is connecting with art. I do think through art you understand meaning, you understand quality, you understand craft, and you not just think of it, you experience it. And as you get used to it, you very quickly sense craft and quality and uniqueness, sophistication in other entities, such as tech companies, right?
And you had also, so obviously you believe that museums are a third-party validation. You believe that the museum is actually determining what is quality.
I think museums are very interesting, and I think place of museums in society and role they played is a bit underrated. I think it's almost like how many of all museums has like attractive or interesting, very, very little amount of them, right? But one of the biggest ideas that I have is to start connecting and gathering technologists and artists in museum spaces. And we can pick some exciting topics such as future of human, space, future of money, and we can bring technologists and artists together in museums, and museums will be thematic to the ideas that these two groups are discussing.
This all makes a lot of sense to me. Why do you think it hasn't really happened?
I
work with museums, and I would think that they would love this idea.
I think it's just like kind of like accident. No one like worked on this, or maybe someone worked on this, but it didn't become public enough so we know about it. And I'm not talking about like super big known institutions, right? I'm more thinking about it would be nice to start gathering people in museums that are very specialized but a bit under the radar, but at the same time important. I think one of the things I'm thinking about and studying is like how Renaissance happened, and been thinking about like, well, why Renaissance is not happening now? What can we do for it to happen?
I'm interested in this museum question because we're looking at the evolution of giving to the arts, and many of the millennials with whom I talk feel that museums are not relevant anymore. And I fear that they will not continue to support museums. So I'm encouraged hearing that you think they are relevant.
Well, I think it's about like picking exact projects and exact museums and bringing people, right? Not thinking about museums as like this thing, but just speaking about particular places. I kept hearing for many years from so many tech founders, I don't like art. And then there is a moment, and usually it's two ways. One way is like there is a dinner where you introduce artists to technologists, and they're suddenly finding out how much in common they have, and technologists get to love the art that this artist has created. That's like first option. And then second option is, second way is like you bring technologists and tech founder to an exhibition and find the art that could speak the most to this person. And it's very often digital art. It will often start with digital art, and then once you experience this moment of connection with art, it gets translated, and then they want to see it more, and they want to experience more. But in my experience, it's usually, I don't think there's like anyone who truly doesn't like art. I think they just haven't yet lived through this moment when it spoke to them, it provoked something in them, and it changed everything else they think about different aspects of life, including their life's work.
Do you think the museums have not sufficiently reached out to the tech world?
I don't think they reached out at all. I
Because
I can only speak from my experience, but I haven't seen strong outreach from museums to tech. I think tech is also being a bit isolated because you can understand tech sector is like founders putting their life into bringing to life something that's just so unique, fragile, and they work on ideas that never existed before, and it's so risky, and it takes so much work, right? Founders I work with like work all the weekends. They work like, some of them work 120 hours a week for years, right? They don't have life outside of it. And then they roll it out, it gets published, and then society not understanding and criticizing, and it's extremely disappointed. And why is it happening? Because once they're like so focused on products, this disconnect starts. So they should talk to society, but how do they talk to society? I think talking to artists is just like a good way to start conversation with the rest of society, right? Because I think artists have so many similar qualities. As founders, they have curiosity, right? They're very inventive. They're innovative.
They do have curiosity outside of
look at something and they're just like, oh, this is an amazing tool. And tech founder invented this tool for one use case. And the artist is like, oh, there's like 20 more use cases I see, right? And I think entrepreneurs feel appreciated and they feel seen, they feel understood. Artists coming up with more use cases, how something could be used for the craft. I do think it's just a way to reconnect back technology and society.
Because some years ago, the former director of SF-MoMA was complaining to me that they're unable to engage Silicon Valley. You know, and he said to me, Scott, what do you think we can do? And I said, have you gone to talk to these people?
Yeah.
I say you have to go and talk to them and see really how you can engage with them, which they don't do. What they do is they just think of what they want and they go and ask for that instead of actually engaging them.
So
and
there is no conversation.
There's no conversation.
I think SF-MoMA is quite popular. I think it's one of very few institutions that probably don't have to complain.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to do some event in SF-MoMA, and I think it was booked like months ahead, and who else is booking SF-MoMA in San Francisco outside of tech companies? It's definitely on the map compared to the rest.
Now, you talked to me, I thought it would be good to have a specific example about you and contemporary art, and you talked to me about your first look that really moved you with an artist, Heidi Bucher. I wonder if you could talk about that again.
Well, I think I just did resonate with a few aspects of her work. I did love how she explained why she's doing it when she said, I cannot not do this. I think she had to establish herself in a very male-dominated area where just her being a woman would decrease her chances to be seen as an artist. And unfortunately, during her entire life, she was not seen, right? And she started becoming popular decades after she passed away. And I think that's just like a bit resonated because tech is also clearly very male-dominated, and you have to probably do more in order to be heard and seen. And I also think of art, if I imagine like any artwork is something that artists, it's like a vision that artists sort of like pull from another dimension and bring here. I started seeing art this way, and I think what's special about Heidi, she almost like was bringing like the whole objects, like big massive objects from another dimension here. And there is a huge psychological element to her work when you do the skinnings and you put textile on the walls and you peel it away and you then put them separately, and everything that was a room before becomes like a new room. And it was a room, but then the skinning been done, and then this room been recreated as an art object. It feels like this new skinning of room is carrying all the memories and everything happened before the skinning been done. I think it's like very psychoanalytical almost, right? I did love this, and I love thinking about it, and I think every time I see her works, it's just like constantly new for me.
You also said that if you can tell us a little bit more how contemporary art helps in making investment decisions and investment strategy.
I think it's just like as you develop love to it and taste, I think you just start seeing craft and sophistication and attention to detail and nuance and talent in other parts of life. And it just gets translated. I think it develops something, it does something to your overall taste, right? That could not affect your decision making,
So
right?
it carries over throughout whatever.
It does carry over. I think you start picking different companies as a result. You start feeling much better if something that this group or person is creating would be temporarily or would be timeless. I think you could always see the difference between artworks which are timeless, which would for centuries inspire and provoke, and artwork which is just like a response on what's happening nowadays. That's not necessarily will carry this magic like for decades. And I think same about companies. You could start through that experience, you could start seeing companies that's made to exist for years and companies that's made to exist for decades, or companies that just made to exist for months. And it's kind of become more obvious how they differentiate.
It is.
I think it has to do with like attention to every small detail and excellence in the way how you just have a vision, and as you have a vision, there's like one way to let it all free, and there is another way to just be excellent in every small detail and aligning your vision with your craft. And it's very difficult. It requires a lot of dedication, it requires a lot of discipline, it requires a lot of commitment, but that is usually a good foundation to create something that's very special and very different.
And if I understand, you actually buy art and you give it to your investors. Is that correct?
I think it's more like I'm sometimes just get inspired by artists, and sometimes I feel a calling to support some artists, and I very often just feel connection between this piece and then feel this piece should belong to someone, but I wouldn't like speak about it as seriously as it's not like it's routine.
I mean, it's something
right?
that happens. You see
it's something happened
and
many times, and sometimes like I think if I really like the person, want to inspire them, and they like I don't like art, I'm like, well, here's a gift, here's artwork, and I think here's why I'm giving it to you, and here's why this artist, and with the hope that it will provoke further relationship between.
And you say you believe there can be, you'd like to create a synergy between scientists, tech, and creatives. Talk more about that.
I think it's more about science and tech is already interconnected. I think connecting technologists and artists would be very meaningful. I think it will create particular effect on technologists, and I think it's kind of like insurance and guarantees that technologists will be ethical and would act from better place and would act in the interest of society, and also just like whichever they create, try to make it good for the world, try to make it beautiful. And at the same time, I think for artists, I think one of the biggest needs of artists is new ideas and inspiration. And for them, creating art is existential, and where else they can find inspiration.
But in the tech world.
Tech definitely provoke a lot of inspiration, and I think things that's happening in tech are fascinating. I think reason, just like not all of us know about it. I can give you like 3 examples of latest investment. One company we invested in and honored to partner with called Cradle Bio. They do cryogenics. So the goal, it's exceptional.
It's called what again?
Cradle Bio, and it's an exceptional group of scientists that work on cryogenics, and it wasn't possible before to freeze and unfreeze your body and your brain fast enough in order to have you need to freeze it like very fast and then unfreeze it very fast, and then it could preserve its values. And they were able to achieve it. And in reality, what will happen is that we could freeze and unfreeze human beings and have them wake up as the same person. And on the way there, you can also create amazing value by, for example, better freezing and not freezing different human organs, so people would get access to organs that they're missing to keep staying alive. One company. Another company I invested in quite recently, they do rainmaking, rain seeding and cloud seeding. And I think it's a big limitation that some of the places on Earth are inhabitable because they don't have enough reciprocation. I think that could be fixed, and that's actually like very safe, which there is a lot of bias over it, and there is a little education about it, but it's quite safe. That's another company. Another company, for example, where I think art can play a big role in telling the story. It's called Orchid, and what they do is they do genome freezing of human embryo. So as a result of it, you can have healthier babies. And I think right now, as we develop, I do think that our existence as human beings is like accident. I don't think this accident will be endless. I do think we should be using science in order to maximize chances of humanity to survive and exist for the next thousands of years. And I think one of the ways now that we have Medicare on such a high level, I think what's happening is that some of the, I think it's just we get less healthy as species. So I do think we need to have access to technologies that help us to make sure that our kids will be the healthiest humans. And I think technologies like that is how we're going to reproduce in the future. So you could, embryo get tested even before it's in the womb, right? And you see the full gene screen of the embryo. And you can, for example, choose embryo with very high, choose embryo without any negative health predispositions like cancer or Alzheimer or mistakes in chromosomes that cause a bunch of other diseases, right? So you can make sure that your future baby will have a better chance to be a healthy person.
And how did any of these companies have any kind of influence or relationship with contemporary art?
We do work on ideas where first step is really I want it to be very natural, and first step would be really put them in front of each other and see if they would have a series that they would inspire each other, right? But I want to put critical mass of technologists in front of critical mass of artists interested in particular topics, because someone care about reproduction and someone care about essence of money and how it evolves. And I want artists who are interested in particular topics to talk to entrepreneurs, and hopefully some of these artists get inspired, and then we can support their artistic projects, and that can continue. And we've done already some of that. We've done 2 years ago open air Dali exhibition. We brought Dali art in a physical gallery space. We had a big opening for hundreds of people and lots of media, and one of the artists, Alexander Reben, got art residency with OpenAI and solo show New York Times Review, and in many ways this event been the start of new phase, very expansive phase of his career.
You know, there have been, in the last few years, there are it seems to me, unlimited art and tech conferences. I keep hearing art and tech conference, art and tech conference. Now, I've only been, you know, my producer, Audrey Kingsley, she knows a lot more about this than I do. And I spoke recently in Miami at one of the art and tech conferences, and I was surprised because it was only tech people. There was like a few of us from the art world who were talking. And the tech people were like thirsty to know more. They were thirsty, they were open, they were asking really interesting questions. But I don't see that has ever materialized into anything real.
Well, I think we could see how AI is used by artists, and I think it has to do with art and tech. We can see such thing as NFTs, which I actually think will come to a new phase of evolvement, right? And every popular wave like this, it's always like a lot of hype, and then 90% of it washed away, and then something stays and evolve, right? So I think that's very natural. I think there is a cool industries. For example, I'm looking at some projects that's using quantum technology to produce music.
Wow.
And that's very interesting and very fresh and very new. I think we're just like in the beginning of it. I think when
So
you
you
come...
think these conferences are worthwhile?
I think my approach is a bit different, right? I don't want to force artists using any technologies. They should choose what they want. I don't want to necessarily back technologies that produce something for artists, because I'm running venture capital fund, and venture capital fund is like big scale, right? And some of that cannot be big scale, so you need to be honest with yourself about it. But I'd rather see that there are like particular problems, and tech has solutions for these problems, and I think some of these solutions are critical, and I think what we're proud of is that we find some of solutions for some of the most pressing problems of our time. And I want these solutions to work and to exist, right? Because that's the only way, in my opinion. I don't think it's governments that's going to solve these problems. I think it's just going to be only companies, tech companies solving these problems, because tech companies has the ability to quickly attract the best talent and at a very high speed develop these products, right? At a very high pace with minimum resources, right? So I think as we have the solutions created, they've been created in a bit like disconnect from society, one. Two, sometimes they just get created very fast, right? And I think I want society to learn about some of the solutions with the help of culture. And I think it would be a critical step in mass adoption, and some of these technologies, for example, very pressing to solving cancer, some of these technologies pressing to solving climate change. So I want to make sure that people love what the founders has created, and I think I see artists as my help in this mission.
This, of course, makes enormous sense to me.
But
I think this makes sense.
I wouldn't really overthink. I think it's always like start with good conversation, where you just create like a great space and safe container where such conversation can happen, and then it can evolve into something bigger.
Well, one of, related to everything you just said, is, among my missions in life is to assure that institutions, arts nonprofits survive. And in order to do that, what I wanted to do is to wean the nonprofits from being constantly dependent on donors, to asking donors to give them funds. They're in this circuit of constantly asking donors. And I'm convinced that there must be a tech product that we can provide to arts nonprofits so they will have some kind of additional revenue model. Now, I was working on one with some young tech people, and it came up. It was going to be an application, something very interesting, which I would love to show you sometime.
Nice.
And we were just at the point, we were getting ready. We had a test case with the museum. We were getting ready. And then these two young tech people dropped the project. It goes back to the whole sense of scale, because they were taken up by a gaming company, because the money is in gaming. And so they dropped this project and went to gaming, and I was very disappointed. But of course, I understood that they're going to make more money in gaming than working on helping arts nonprofits.
I mean, I think it's just particular case, and it always comes down to particular people, and it comes down to assessing where the people in life and what their needs, right, and how the projects align with their current needs as human beings. So.
But we agree that as human beings, we want to preserve some of the existing structures. And I think it's not, it's part of what I see with this next generation is they just don't want all of the institutions only to be funded by the super wealthy, creating, which then they impose their point of views on what's happening in the institution.
I think it's, speaking about super wealthy, I think tech is like such a field when you solve some pressing problem or create something truly innovative. I've seen like student turning into billionaire in less than 4 years, right? And from totally unprivileged background. And I think what you can do as an institution is, I think you can just be friendly and open doors to such founders when they're not famous and big anymore. Because in my experience, and I'm early stage investor usually in tech, and if someone becomes massively successful, right, they just remember those who supported them before everyone recognized it as a success, right? And I think so many ways for institutions to do this, if I just like brainstorm something quickly, like tech loves hackathons, right? they just always look like where to throw this hackathon, and there is like nothing. You just need to have a few desks for like a day or two, right? It's like not rocket science, and some of these institutions could just provide the space. So these people start associating what is like.
This should be able to happen. I think this should happen.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It's like very easy. I just don't think it has to be some bulky construction or massive game plan how to do it. I think it all starts with just like good examples.
I
So
think you're probably right. What do you think? Of course, the recent intersection of art and tech has been this whole NFT stuff. There was this whole boom, and there was one moment, maybe for a period of certainly 18 or 24 months, that everybody was talking NFT, NFT,
Yeah.
NFT, and there were conferences and art fairs, and it went on. And then, of course, now it doesn't exist anymore. I wonder, what are your thoughts about
I think
this
it
whole...
exists. I think some projects like CryptoPunks will keep existing. I think we've seen it in many fields like AI, that such technology get big first, and then it all shrinks, and then it comes back. I think it creates new way of ownership for the art and I think what's beneficial is that every time the NFTs resold, artists and creator get some share of future
That's
profits. I think in terms of
valuable.
economics, in terms of financial structure, legal structure, it's just much more mature structure. I think it's totally normal that lots of projects being created. Think about how many paintings are getting created every year, and how many of them reach museums, and how many of them reach collectors. It's probably also like 1% of everything, right? Same about NFTs. It was some opportunistic people. They created some projects, they made them popular. This popularity didn't remain, but I wouldn't bury NFT. I think it's too early for this. And I'm quite sure some collections like CryptoPunks, they haven't disappeared over this winter. Crypto winter, and I don't think they will disappear. It's already, in some ways, CryptoPunks became part of our art history and part of history of tech.
And how do you see giving to the arts, philanthropy to the arts, how is it evolving? What are your views on that?
I'm always like into having it genuine, right? And I think institutions can also start with just like giving face to tech entrepreneurs and founders before they get big or important, because I think it creates foundation for a genuine and caring connection between those. So I think it's great, and I think lots of that is just creating opportunities for such connections to happen.
Can you talk to us a little more about Day One Ventures' approach? What is unique about Day One
I think
Ventures' approach?
there are many unique things, and I think one of the unique things we back the most customer-focused founders. And I don't think all companies are guided by interest of the customers, and that you can find a lot of resilience and alignment if you're guided by providing value for your customers. I think we are extremely founder-friendly, and having extremely high bar to what extent we help founders. We help founders not just with advice, we actually get involved a lot operationally and spend hundreds of hours every month to provide actual work without requiring any short-term financial outcome, which is also quite unique. I think it's also about ideas that we choose. I think we take risk choosing some of the most ambitious ideas of our time.
And in this most recent fund, if I understand correctly, you're focusing on future of human. Tell us a little bit more about
I think
that. What does that
humans just my biggest interest in life, and I think it's a big surprise and luck that we exist as species, and I don't think there is any guarantee that we will keep this existence. And I think one of the most important usages of technology is how can we make sure we keep existing as species, and then you can like separate it in a few fields, from longevity to reproduction to mental health to brain-computer interfaces. I think it's an explored area. I've been looking at what Brian Johnson is doing, trying to extend his lifespan, and being inspired, but also asking myself what else is out there. So one of the goals with investing in future of human will be to explore and find out what is like the future of humans that we speak about. And this company, Cradle Bio that I mentioned, is a great example of a company that's doing something groundbreaking for the future of human. And I think what's unique about our time, like technology is here, right? We just need entrepreneurs to combine the two products and bring to life and bring to society.
Now, I was also intrigued that you talk a lot about the focusing on diversity in your investments, and your focus on diversity seems to be exactly parallel what we're trying to do in the art world, you know, with museums and collecting. And so I want you to talk a little bit about the focus on diversity.
Well, I think it's just a natural extension of who we are. It hasn't been an effort, it's just all we did just to state who we are as we come to work. So I think it's been very natural to be very diverse.
You also talk about a feminine role, and you talk about women. Tell me more about that.
I think it's not, I wouldn't call myself feminist or any of those. I think embracing more feminine approach is something that's just benefiting people of any gender in this career, and I think it's really important. I think lots of success comes as a side effect of recognizing and finding who you are, and I think for women in business, it's especially important to emerge into the feminine, because that's where the power can come from, right? Instead of trying to copy and do what men do,
But
which is very limiting.
In terms of other venture capital angel investors, I think you are more diverse and have more investments in women founders.
Well, I run a bit bigger things than just angel investing. I was angel investor before we scaled this institution from 11 million under management to $500 million in less than 5 years, which is quite fast scale. I do think there is a high representation of all sorts of minorities as well as women. It's just been naturally following and trying to find the best talent and being very honest about it and not putting any conditions outside of actual quality of idea and quality of talent.
And if we're talking about, if you want to address future philanthropists, what would you say to them? Encourage them. What should they do? How do they?
Well, I think when it comes to philanthropy, I don't think anyone owes to do anything, right? I don't think you have to do. I don't think it's your debt. I don't think you're in debt to society. I think good stuff comes from inspiration. And I think if you care about keeping some institutions, you could start creating environments and spaces and gatherings where natural connection will happen. And as a result of this natural connection between, for example, institution or artist and someone who has access in financial resources will happen. And then it would just naturally evolve into a particular philanthropic act. But I think at the core of it is just human connection. And I think it's not that difficult. It requires a bit of attention and work, but it's not that difficult to facilitate this kind of connection. And I think if you treat it as again, thinking about it big and think about some master plan, I just don't know if it's going to work. But if you treat it as simple as how can I make people, okay, I know this representative institution or artist, and I know this entrepreneur, and they, despite them being in different fields, they have something in common. How can you make these human beings?
Of course.
I think that's what I think it's just been working well so far.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Masha,
you.
for taking the time to talk to us. And I look forward to following everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for great conversations.
Be sure to check out our latest podcast and subscribe to Giving Back is Dead.